Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to a Kerbal Space Program where we have a very strange rocket which immediately explodes, and it's okay because that's what it was designed to do. You may remember that we were building up a collection of contracts where we had to test things while landed. They were all engines, and what I did was I tested them all at once on a ship that had one of each, so it was a little imbalanced and a little funny to watch, but we got the money, which probably wasn't worth how much the parts were, to be honest, but we also got them out of our contracts list without having any negative reputation. I'm not going to bother accepting any more parts testing contracts at this point. The point is, well, we're going to do research and cool stuff like that. So here we are on the launch pad with our new rocket, and off it goes. So what this is, well, I've called this the Mint Spider, because it is the Minmus variant of the jumping spider. I've made a couple of changes. You can see it's got the same basic structure. It's got the launch system has the 4 boosters and the big central column, but the difference is that this time instead of 2 little extra boosters for after these have run out, we have 2 engines to just bolster the thrust of the main engine. And then on the upper stage, instead of having a double sized fuel tank thing, we have a normal sized fuel tank, and we've also put an SAS unit on that, and you'll see that in a minute when we remove this lower stage here. So the boosters have come off now, and you can see things are going a lot smoother with these extra engines on. We're getting up to what we wanted to, so there we go, getting our apoapsis up to 50 and then beyond, getting onto the horizon and keeping it going, with the intention of getting it round to 75, which is my target apoapsis. And once, but we don't quite get there because that stage runs out, but that's okay because that's what I was expecting. So we fire the next stage, get ourselves the apoapsis we need, and then while we warp up, you can see that we have a smaller tank and an SAS unit. Well, you can't see it very well, but I'll tell you it's there, and that means we can actually maneuver at a decent rate, and also we the engine doesn't need to work so hard to push us along, and we're not going to have a crap ton of extra fuel at the end of our journey. So anyway, I'm getting the inclination of our orbit right, because of course we're going to Minmus, and what that means is that we need to be on a wonky orbit, because so is Minmus. We need to match its orbit so that we have a good chance of encountering it. So I just warp us to the right spot and then burn north, and that gives us a nice tilt, and also it finishes getting our apoapsis above the atmosphere, periapsis even, because it wasn't actually quite there, but I was being lazy. So anyway, we got ourselves our encounter, and then we go around. We point ourselves at the maneuver node, and then we can warp around to our actual maneuver. And the thing is, it says that there's an estimated burn time of like 20 seconds, or maybe even 10, and I take its word for it because I'm an idiot, and the actual burn time is like a minute or something, so we're slightly off where we're supposed to be, but it's not too much of a problem. You can see that the orbit's not quite on the same thing as it should be, but it's only a little bit out, and I can fine-tune it and get the apoapsis right down to something like 3 kilometers there, very close. And then off we go, warping towards Minmus, and if you've got HD on, you'll be able to see it right now, slowly spinning into view as we warp it 1,000 times. Eventually I start to get bored because it's just moving across the sky, not apparently getting closer, so it gets up to 10,000, and then we come screaming in and say hi to Minmus, enter its sphere of influence, and then fly in at crazy speeds. And then I suddenly realised that the ground is actually higher up than 3 kilometers, so we now need to do something about that. So I quickly start decelerating, because I guess we're going to land now. I was going to get into an orbit and all that stuff, but I guess not. So that's that stage out, and then we just need to get ourselves going straight down. There we go, and then we can get ourselves pointed right, and I also rotate us so we can see things a bit better. And then the gear out, and then it's just a normal landing situation. Checking the what's its face, the radar altimeter to see what altitude the ground is at, and it's at like I don't know, something like 2 kilometers, I think. So anyway, down we go, and you can see the only change that I've made to the actual to the lander itself is to remove the 2 extra engines that were on each of the fuel tanks on the side, because we don't need that much thrust to land on Minmus. Also, I've noticed that we actually have more lights than we should. We have 4 of them when we should have 2, and I guess something happened with symmetry there by accident. So I'll have to see about removing that, because we basically couldn't see anything. So anyway, we've got all our science done in the capsule, so now it's time to hop outside and do the science there, deploy the flag. We're in the lowlands, put that on. We're doing this in record time here. We're not going to mess about wandering around and talking to mission control. We're going to get the science done, we're going to go home, we're going to cash it in and build bigger things, and then send those out. So we get a bunch of... we get stuff transmitted. I do a hop out and hop in to get a little extra science. Work out our positioning relative to the rest of the universe. And then just a little bit of thrust to get us into the air. Start doing a couple of bits of mid-air science. Get all that done. And that gets us some contract stuff achieved. Though something at this point I haven't realised I need to actually be in an orbit round Minmus at some point to get the completed contract. And I never intend to do this, but it just sort of happens accidentally. So there you go, and that got me the orbit. I was just trying to leave, and it just so happened that the angle was right so that an orbit would be achieved just before I did leave. So it's a good job it was, because I'd have to go back otherwise and just achieve an orbit in order to get the contract complete. Anyway, I hop out and do some EVA science because I might as well, and it turns out you can get EVAs above different biomes on Minmus as well, so I'll be able to do some stuff with that at some point in the future. So off we go, flying back home at insane rates. And it looks like we're going to land in the sea. In fact, there's sea as far as you can see, which is interesting. So we're coming at 3 kilometers a second, going straight down. So that's interesting. G-forces go off the scale, and then eventually return to the scale, and then at some point become reasonable again. We have another weird explosion thing when the tanks come off. I guess they're just attached to... oh, it'll be the lights. It's because the lights, when we detach the decouplers, the lights will be inside the decouplers. And then they will explode and flip the capsule into the fuel tanks entirely. But anyway, we've landed now and we've managed to stay upright and not have anything explode when it hits the water. So we're back at the space center, and we have a huge amount of science there. 780 was it, I think. And then we get some money and reputation and stuff. Nobody cares about those; they're not important. The science is what matters. So you can also see we've got our contract complete there. Tons and tons of money flooding in from all of that. We're now on 800,000 arbitrary monetary units, and we haven't got anything to spend them on, honestly. But we'll go do some research now. So we'll go into the labs, and now we've got so much to spend. I think we can buy, what is it? We can buy, I think, three of the science things in the tier that we're currently in, and then one of something in the next tier. So this time I'm not so sure about what I want to get, so I'm looking through, and I decided to pick the science one with the ladders, because, you know, science is always useful to have. But then not sure where to go with the other money yet, so looking at capsules, that looks like a good idea, so I go for those. And there's also some RCS stuff. The 2 new types of engine that we've got are in that particular one as well, and I'm looking around at the stuff we've unlocked in the next tier as well to think about that, and then carrying on with this tier. There's a grabbing arm, there's solar panels, there's probe components, plane bits, and also bigger rocket parts. And I end up going for plane bits because I think, you know, that'll be interesting. We can do some planes there. And then I'm looking in the next tier because we've got 300 science left, and these cost 300, so I might as well go for one of these instead of one of the lower tier ones. We've got different plane things, and there's some pod stuff, and the thing is, it looks useful, but I don't know if I'll use it. And rover stuff I'll not go for yet, I don't think. So in the end, my decision is whenever it happens, because this is I am still in post commentary here, even though we're watching in real time. Eventually, nope, no, not yet. We're looking through, looking at these struts and things. I don't really need the struts yet. So in the end, I go for supersonic jet parts. There we go. So we'll probably do some planes in next episode, and that'll be some interesting fun to be had, and probably not much science. But anyways, we need to go and get some contracts, so we have plant a flag on the moon. Well, alright then, I suppose we will be doing at some point science data from around Kerbin. I do that accidentally all the time, so that's fine. Data from around Minmus, that will require another trip over there. And then there's also a Kerman to rescue from orbit, so we'll go do that as well. And then finally, someone wants us to explore Eve, so might as well go accept that, because we'll go over there at some point, so there's no expiry date on that. So here is our active science as it currently stands. Explore Juna, Ike, Eve, plant flag on the moon, get science from Minmus and Kerbin, and rescue a guy from orbit. So That's all stuff that we can look at the next episode, as well as maybe doing some planes and stuff like that. But there is one more thing I want to talk about just before we finish. So, as you are probably aware, I am a Factorio channel, mostly. I do Factorio videos on Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays, and then there's a bunch of random extra stuff as well, all tutorials and things like that. And the thing is that at the moment all my subscribers are basically because of Factorio. And so I'm wondering, I want to do a little bit of a viewer survey here. How many of you KSP video watchers actually watch only KSP and don't watch my Factorio videos? That's what I want to know, because I'm wondering if, because all my views are coming from Factorio players who've stumbled upon my tutorials and things like that, are there any people on my channel who watch KSP because they prefer it rather than just because it's on instead of Factorio? Because if it turns out that everyone would prefer to see Factorio than Kerbal Space Program, then I am at this point okay to cancel the series, or maybe just bring it down to one a week or something along those lines. Because at the moment I don't know, I'm not enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying Factorio. I love making Factorio videos. It's really fun because I really love the game, and in fact Factorio has usurped KSP in my estimations as the best game ever. So that's a thing. So just in the comments below, tell me if you are watching my KSP videos because you prefer them to Factorio, or if you're watching them because there's no Factorio to watch and you might as well. At the moment, the KSP videos are getting a fraction of what Factorio is, so at least in that way my general subscriber base will prefer Factorio, and I would as well. And you may be aware that my main series is about to end. It's coming to its conclusion. There's very little research left to do, and then I will have rocket defense built and the series will be over. So I'm wondering if I should replace it with two separate Factorio series instead, like one post commentary and one real time and stuff like that, and see whether people like that. So just tell me if you want KSP to continue, or if you don't. And I will listen to your suggestions, because I'm completely fine with cutting this series and replacing it with Factorio if that's what people want. And that's pretty much it, really. So, you know, just a bit of a viewer survey, find out what you want, and see where to go from there. So I think that's everything. So we'll find out what happens. It may be that this is the last episode of Kerbal Space Program. If everyone says, nah, I don't like it, go do something else. But anyway, we will find out. And until then, I shall say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.